Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're taking a look at Gene Pitney again. From last week, I did say that I was going to do a follow-up video, so here it is. And we're going to be taking a look at 24 Hours from Tulsa, and this is the recorded version of the song. It's the music video with it, so it's difficult to find a live version of this by Gene back in the day, but we will be looking at this and also getting into Gene's background. But this is another performance where vocally he does some interesting things, so we'll have a look at that as well. So let's get Gene up on screen and see how he gets on.
Dearest, darling, I had to write to say that I won't be home anymore. For something happened to me while I was driving home, and I'm not the same anymore. Oh, I was only 24 hours from Tulsa, only one day away from your arms. I saw a welcoming light and stopped to rest for the night, and that is when I saw her as I pulled in outside of the small motel. She was there, and so I walked up to her, asked where I could get something to eat, and she showed me where. Oh, I was only 24 hours from Tulsa, only one day away from your arms. She took me to the cafe. I asked her if she would stay. She said, okay.
I'm just going to jump in here during the instrumental section. As always, the link to this video is going to be in the description below, so you guys can listen to it there all the way through without me interrupting it. This song, from a lyrical perspective, is an interesting read because Gene has written a letter that he's sending back to his loved one, as he starts it, "Dearest, darling," and then he continues to tell this loved one about what's happened, and he's met somebody else, and that he's having a great time, they're dancing all night. I can't help but think that the person reading this letter doesn't want to know these details. Another thing that is interesting about this performance that Gene did in the studio to get this vocal was his use of vocal fry, and it is something that I've mentioned in other videos about other singers and female singers, but male singers also use this technique, and Gene uses it extensively throughout this performance. So we are going to be looking at it in a little bit more detail just to point out what Gene's doing and how he achieves that sound. I think it was during my Patsy Cline video that I did a demonstration of vocal fry and explained it about getting that cry into the voice and how it does, I think, run deeper than just making a noise. It's something that's instinctively within all of us to pay attention to. But in this performance, the way that Gene uses vocal fry, in some sections, he's not even saying words, he's just making noises. And it's something that you might not notice because your brain will automatically put the words in because you know how the song goes and you know what the lyrics are. But when you then isolate it and listen to what's going on, you'll start to hear these noises in isolation. But the vocal fry here is what draws you in and gives you the expression and gives you the connection to the performer. And this is why the song is so intriguing, interesting on so many levels, not only because of the lyrical content, but the delivery that Gene gives it. So you connect to him in such a strong way to the point where you might not even initially be listening to the story of the song. You're just enjoying the performance, connecting with the performer and the melody of the song, the overall composition, because we've got that gradual increase in pitch, which we have in so many hits, so that the crescendo and the highest note is always in the chorus. Also, within this video, I'm hoping to cover a little bit of Gene's history, his music career. Sometimes with the analysis, it does run on a little bit, but hopefully we'll get there before the end. So with Gene's delivery in this performance, or on the recorded version of this song, he goes to that vocal fry sound. And if you didn't see my other video, vocal fry is the point at which your vocal cords aren't quite fully connected yet. So it sounds like this. And then if I was to connect them and just add a little bit more compression, I'd get this sound. And they then connect, and you can hear that clean note, but the before that is vocal fry. So this is what Gene's doing throughout this performance, and I've taken the second chorus as an example because we're going to play through from this point, and we're going to be listening out for his use of vocal fry.
She showed me where, oh, I was only...
Straight away, going into the chorus, we haven't got I was only. We haven't got notes. We've got I was only. And the whole first part is actually more dramatic than that. He goes, wow, wow, wow. It's an wow in vocal fry. So there aren't any words coming out. So doing that in super slow motion, we can see how Gene starts in vocal fry and then adds a little bit more compression to then get into the chorus after that initial connection he's made with the audience because of the cry in the sound. So having this I was only, you can see how going they then come together to give you a note and then continue the rest of that vocal phrase. But let's look out for it for the rest of this chorus.
24 hours from Tulsa.
A hint, just a hint of it on hours as well. And then we just have another noise. Ow, ow, ow. It's just a noise between the vocal phrases, but because it's done in such a way to be full of expression, it is like he's thinking about what he's singing and just making that, you know, just a throwaway vocal fry. And it makes sense. This is the point, that when you listen to this song through, you don't think, oh, well, that's not right because he's not saying a word. He just made a noise. We don't think of it like that because it's a noise that emotes whilst it's being made. It's something that we put an emotion to, a noise that we attribute emotion to. So when we hear it, we don't think, oh, that's a silly noise, why has he done that? We're listening to it in the context of the composition, of the vocal delivery, and the story that we're listening to. Let's get back into the chorus.
One day away from your arms, she took me to the cafe. I asked her if she would stay.
Did you hear her on I? And I just did a vocal fry there. It's so well executed because of having that vocal fry and just connecting those chords. It's something that I did say in the other video that I did on Gene about his love of country music as a genre and having that expression in his voice. And having that vocal fry is very much a part of that, to the point where he can flip up into his head voice with no strain because that vocal fry is so relaxed that he can just pop into that head voice without forcing it. It just happens. We've got, towards the end of the chorus, a lot of connected notes without the vocal fry, and then Gene will just go back into it to shake it up a little bit and give you such an interesting delivery of the vocal because he's not just singing straight notes the whole time. And it is that combination of vocal fry and coming out of vocal fry on pitch. That is what is so clever and so impressive from a vocal technique perspective, to be able to come out of vocal fry on pitch, because that's something that Gene does faultlessly. But let's get back into the song and we'll watch it all the way to the end.
I was only 24 hours from Tulsa. Only one day away from your arms. The jukebox started to play, and nighttime turned into day as we were dancing closely. All of a sudden I lost control as I held her charms, and I caressed her, kissed her, told her I'd die before I would let her out. of my arms. Oh, I was only 24 hours from Tulsa. Only one day away from your arms. I hate to do this to you, but I love somebody new. What can I do when I can never, never, never go home again?
And there we have it. So I'm sure that all of you were listening out for that vocal fry now. Another thing that I want to draw your attention to, I have cued the video to another point so that we can hear Gene's performance that he got down in the studio with that vocal fry being so relaxed. I mentioned before we resumed the video about flipping up into head voice, and that it would happen naturally because the voice is in such a relaxed state. The voice box, the larynx, everything is not being obstructed by too many muscle contractions and wanting to clamp down on the sound. So we've got a tiny, tiny section here where Gene pops up into head voice, and it's there for a fraction of a second, but we'll listen to the audio first.
Closely, all of a sudden I...
And there, the of, a sudden, listen to the word of, because he's flipped up into that head voice. Just quickly, in case you haven't got a clue what I'm on about, we're just going to listen to that vocal phrase at 25% speed, and I'll stop it immediately after we hear that head voice kicking in. That top note, I think that's around a B. And we're talking about a B4 here, so if you've got your guitars out, we're going to be on the 7th fret of that high E string. So it is a high note in that male tenor range, but Gene isn't singing in that range, he's singing well below that. The note just happens because of the relaxed nature of the voice and the vocal cords. It just pops up into that head voice space. It does beg the question that an artist recording nowadays, in order to try and simulate the performance that Gene has given here, how would it be achieved with auto-tune on the voice? Because in sections here, Gene is not hitting a note. He's just making a noise that is vocal fry and then connecting his chords into a note. So what would auto-tune do with that? Auto-tune would make it a note. It would snap it to whichever note is closest within that expression of it'll probably be it would try and snap it to the note that is closest to, but it would sound weird. And that is the point, that none of these performances back in the 60s sounded weird, they sounded full of emotion. And now, as you guys know by now, with all of the videos that I've done that have had a little bit of auto-tune on there, I'm not a fan of it just purely because it makes it sound mechanical, because it's a machine that is snapping the notes rather than letting the expression through, as the artists from the 60s and 70s and the 80s all had that expression in their voice because it was the live performance we were hearing in the studio. I mentioned in the other video that I did on Gene about his songwriting and the fact that he wrote Rubber Ball, and that was recorded by Bobby V, and also He's a Rebel by the Crystals, and Hello Mary Lou, which was a big hit for Ricky Nelson, and that was the song that I looked at in that other video that Gene performed. But he was heavily into country, blues as well, an avid doo-wop singer like I mentioned before. In the other video that I did, I didn't get into the background behind Gene and how he started, so we're quickly going to do that now. Initially, he was part of a duo called Jamie and Jane, and that was with Ginny Arnell. And in 1959, he still would have only been 19 years of age. He recorded as Billy Bryan. In 1961 is when he signed with Aaron Schroeder's Music Hall label, and he did have a hit with that label. It was called I Wanna Love My Life Away. And I mentioned about the fact he plays lots of instruments and also multi-tracked his vocals, as he did with that song, and that turned into a top 40 hit. In 1961, Town Without Without Pity was released, the movie and the title track, and Gene won a Golden Globe for that title track, written by Dmitri Tiomkin and Ned Washington. Unfortunately, he lost out at the Academy Awards to Moon River, but he did manage to perform that same song at the 1962 Oscars. In 1964, he had a huge hit with The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. That got to number 4 in the charts, and that was another Burt Bacharach, Hal David track. Unfortunately, it wasn't used in the movie with John Wayne because of disputes over publishing, so that's a shame. The song of that name never made it to the movie of the name, but he also released Only Love Can Break a Heart, which got to number 2 in the charts, another massive hit, and also Half Heaven, Half Heartache, which got to number 12 in the charts. I mentioned about Gene's songwriting, and I want to mention a little fact, because the song He's a Rebel that was performed by the Crystals got to number 1. It was a huge hit for them. And the guy at number 2 was Gene Pitney with Only Love Can Break a Heart. So Gene became the first ever artist to deny themselves a number 1 hit because the band at number 1 were performing one of his songs, and that was the first time that had ever happened. Getting back to 1964, 24 Hours From Tulsa was released, and that was a massive hit here in the UK. It got to number 5 in our charts and got to number 17 in the US charts. He also helped out the Rolling Stones with recording, played a bit of piano, and from that he then released That Girl Belongs to Yesterday, which was a Mick Jagger and Keith Richards track that they'd written, and I believe that was their first ever top 10 hit that they'd written together that somebody else performed. In 1964, It Hurts to Be in Love was released, and that was a huge hit. It got to number 7 in the charts. It was initially written for Neil Sedaka and recorded by him, but unfortunately for him, he recorded it outside of RCA Victor, which was a violation of his contract. So Gene was approached to record it, and he did, and as I said, it was a massive hit for him, even though they did keep Neil's backing vocals on that original recording. In 1965, Gene started to record some country music. He did 2 albums with George Jones, and another thing is that he performed in Italian, Spanish, and German so that he reached that European market. I did mention in the other video that I did about his popularity in the USA really being at its peak in the 60s, the late 60s, but then getting into the 70s, he was on the decline in the USA, but on the rise in the UK. And going into the mid-70s, things really started to take off in Australia. In 1989, he got his first UK number 1, and that was for Something's Gotten Hold of My Heart. It was a collaboration performance with soft cell singer Mark Armand. Also that same year, he had a performance on a show we have here in the UK called This Morning, where he was miming along to a backing track, but unfortunately, he couldn't hear the backing track. And I think they made a rod for their own back because he was performing on a boat outside, so making sure that he could hear the backing track wasn't really the top priority. I would have just done it in the studio to make sure, but unfortunately he couldn't hear that. So it's a bit of a famous performance here in the UK just purely because the backing track starts up and Gene is totally unaware that it started. But Gene achieved 16 top 40 hits in the USA, 22 top 40 hits here in the UK, and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2002. Sadly, he passed away in 2006 and he died of a heart attack. It was due to occluded coronary arteries, which just means blocked, I think. So we lost Gene in 2006 at the age of 66. But it's great to have a look back at performances like this that really show off Gene's vocal ability and the techniques that he used in order to make his vocals stand out from the rest and really get a connection with his audience. But thank you guys so much for suggesting this video and requesting another video of Gene to take a look at. Keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!